The Jewish space laser incident should have ended her political career before it began. In 2018, Greene had posted that California wildfires were caused by lasers or blue beams of light, controlled by the Rothschild banking family. Not metaphorical lasers, not financial manipulation. Actual space lasers, operated by Jews, starting forest fires for profit. The post was so unhinged that even other conspiracy theorists tried to distance themselves. But in Georgia's 14th district, it made her a star. When she suggested school shootings were staged, they donated. When she posted videos following and harassing David Hogg, a Parkland shooting survivor, calling him a crisis actor, they saw a hero fighting the deep state. $3 billion. $3 billion of taxpayer money to put government agents in our schools. She pulled out a piece of paper, holding it up like evidence at a trial. I have proof right here. A Facebook post from a concerned parent in Ohio who says her daughter's school has rainbow flags. This is the homosexual agenda using your tax dollars to confuse your children. The Democrats want you to think this is about safety, Greene continued, her voice cracking from strain. But I have dozens of posts from real Americans who know the truth. This is about control. This is about destroying the nuclear family. This is about... Let's examine your claims with actual facts, Jeffries began, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who didn't need volume to command attention. He stood at the podium like a professor about to deliver the most important lecture of the semester, his slight smile suggesting he'd been waiting for this moment his entire career. Get ready for the most shocking content on the internet. Subscribe to Shockfiler now and join the Shockfiler community that's not afraid to dive into the unknown, Shockfiler. Let's get this shockwave started. To understand how a conspiracy theorist met her match, we need to go back 24 hours to when the House convened for what should have been a straightforward vote on the Education Security and Innovation Act. The bill was simple: $3. $2 billion in additional funding for public schools to hire mental health counselors, update security systems, and provide teacher training. After Uvalde, after Nashville, after too many tragedies to count, this was the bare minimum Congress could do to protect children. But Marjorie Taylor Greene saw something different. Where others saw grief counselors for traumatized kids, she saw government agents indoctrinating your children. Where others saw security upgrades to keep shooters out, she saw surveillance systems to monitor patriot parents. Where others saw teacher training to identify struggling students, she saw grooming programs funded by your tax dollars. In Greene's fevered mind, a bill to protect children was actually a sinister plot to destroy America. She'd spent the previous night in what she called research, which meant scrolling through QAnon Telegram channels and printing out anonymous posts from 8chan. Her staff had watched in horror as she highlighted passages about the cabal's education agenda and Soros-funded brainwashing. By 3 a.m., she had a manila folder thick with conspiracy theories, each one wilder than the last. She'd even found a blurry photo of a rainbow flag in a classroom and circled it with red Sharpie, writing "Evidence" in the margins. This wasn't just about one unhinged representative anymore. Greene had become the avatar for a movement that preferred comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. Her constituents didn't send her to Congress to govern. They sent her to perform, to rage, to transform their Facebook fears into congressional theater, and she was about to deliver the performance of her lifetime. What Greene didn't know was that Democrats had specifically chosen Hakeem Jeffries to lead their response. This wasn't random. Jeffries had earned a reputation as the party's most effective communicator, a man who could explain complex policy in simple terms and demolish bad faith arguments with surgical precision. While others got flustered by Greene's antics, Jeffries saw them as opportunities. Let her rant, he told his team that morning. The wilder she gets, the clearer the contrast becomes. This isn't about winning an argument with someone who denies reality. It's about showing America what's at stake when we let extremism hijack governance. Jeffries had spent years perfecting his approach. As a lawyer, he'd learned that you don't argue with delusion. You expose it. As a congressman, he'd discovered that the best response to chaos wasn't more chaos. It was clarity. He'd watched Greene's previous meltdowns, studied her patterns, identified her triggers. He knew she couldn't resist a conspiracy theory, couldn't help but escalate, couldn't stop herself from saying the quiet part loud. The morning of the debate, Greene strutted into the House chamber like a gladiator entering the arena. She wore her brightest red suit, her blonde hair styled for maximum camera impact, her folder of evidence clutched like a weapon. She'd already tweeted that morning, "Today I expose the Democrat plan to groom your children. They want to silence me because I know the truth." Jeffries arrived quietly, carrying nothing but a single page of notes. He took his seat, adjusted his microphone, and waited. He'd learned long ago that when your opponent is digging their own grave, you don't take away their shovel. The gallery was packed. Teachers who'd driven through the night to watch the debate, parents who'd lost children to school shootings, students who'd survived lockdowns and wanted to feel safe in their classrooms. They'd come to see their government work for them, to see sanity prevail over madness. Greene thought she could hijack democracy with printed conspiracy theories and theatrical rage. She thought volume could defeat facts, that passion could overcome preparation. She thought she was the hero of this story. She was about to meet her match. And when conspiracy met reality, reality had a way of winning. While Greene descended deeper into madness, a brilliant legal mind was preparing to bring her back to earth. But first, we need to understand how Marjorie Taylor Greene transformed from a CrossFit gym owner in Georgia into Congress's most dangerous conspiracy theorist, a journey that reads like a cautionary tale about what happens when Facebook algorithms meet fragile minds. Greene's political origin story began where so many extremist journeys do, in the comment sections of social media. What started as sharing fitness tips devolved into sharing conspiracy theories. By 2017, she wasn't just reading QAnon posts, she was creating them, diving headfirst into a digital rabbit hole where every tragedy was a false flag, and every Democrat was part of a satanic cabal. Her Facebook history became a museum of American madness. The Jewish space laser incident should have ended her political career before it began. In 2018, Greene had posted that California wildfires were caused by lasers or blue beams of light, controlled by the Rothschild banking family. Not metaphorical lasers, not financial manipulation. Actual space lasers, operated by Jews, starting forest fires for profit. The post was so unhinged that even other conspiracy theorists tried to distance themselves. But in Georgia's 14th district, it made her a star. Her base didn't want a representative. They wanted a warrior for their alternate reality. Every wild theory she embraced validated their own descent into madness. When she claimed 9/11 was an inside job, they cheered. When she suggested school shootings were staged, they donated. When she posted videos following and harassing David Hogg, a Parkland shooting survivor, calling him a crisis actor, they saw a hero fighting the deep state. The harassment of school shooting survivors revealed the true depths of Greene's depravity. She didn't just question narratives, she stalked teenagers who'd watched their classmates die. In one video, she followed Hogg down the street, demanding he explain how he got meetings with senators. "Why won't you talk to me?" she shrieked at a kid who'd hidden in a closet while his friends were murdered. Her supporters called it brave journalism. The rest of America called it what it was, sociopathic. But Greene had learned a dark truth about modern politics. There was no bottom. Each new low became a new floor. Each fresh outrage brought more donations, more followers, more power. Her base's appetite for conspiracy theories was insatiable, and she was their all-you-can-eat buffet of crazy. They didn't want governance. They wanted validation that their worst fears and wildest theories were real. By 2024, Greene had escalated beyond even QAnon's fever dreams. She'd started calling any Democrat who supported LGBTQ rights a pedophile supporter. Not metaphorically, not politically. She claimed they were literally supporting child abuse. When challenged to provide evidence, she'd wave printed Facebook posts and scream about grooming. It was blood libel for the digital age, and she wielded it like a weapon. Her confidence came from a simple calculation. Volume equals victory. If you shout loud enough, long enough, with enough conviction, truth becomes irrelevant. She'd watched Trump prove this theorem, and she'd perfected it. Why engage with facts when you could simply scream over them? Why debate when you could perform? Why govern when you could stand? In Congress, she'd turned every hearing into her personal theater. Financial Services Committee? She'd rant about the communist banking system. Foreign Affairs? She'd scream about globalist conspiracies. Education? That was her favorite. Endless opportunities to accuse teachers of indoctrinating children with dangerous ideas like tolerance and history. Her colleagues had tried everything. Republicans privately begged her to tone it down. Democrats attempted fact-checking. Journalists published exposés. Nothing worked. Greene had achieved a kind of political invincibility through sheer shamelessness. She was too crazy to shame, too loud to ignore, too useful to her base to abandon. But her greatest weakness was hiding in plain sight. She actually believed it all. This wasn't performance art or cynical manipulation. Greene had drunk so deeply from the conspiracy well that she couldn't distinguish between reality and Reddit posts. She brought printed 4chan threads to congressional hearings as evidence. She cited anonymous Telegram messages in official speeches. She'd lost the ability to distinguish between facts and fever dreams. Walking into the education funding debate, Greene felt invincible. She had her folder of proof, her rehearsed talking points about grooming, her absolute certainty that volume would once again equal victory. She looked at Hakeem Jeffries and saw just another elite trying to silence the truth. She had no idea she was about to face something she'd never encountered before. Someone who understood that the best way to defeat madness wasn't to match it, but to expose it. Someone who knew that when conspiracy theories meet calm facts, the conspiracy theories don't just lose, they self-destruct. The descent into madness had been gradual. The return to reality would be brutal. While Greene descended deeper into madness, a brilliant legal mind was preparing to bring her back to earth. Hakeem Jeffries didn't stumble into becoming the Democrats' most formidable communicator. He'd built himself for this moment through decades of disciplined excellence, transforming from a Brooklyn kid into the intellectual heavyweight who could speak truth to power in perfect paragraphs. Born in Crown Heights when it was still struggling with poverty and racial tension, Jeffries learned early that words could be weapons or bridges. His parents, a social worker mother and substance abuse counselor father, showed him that service wasn't about savior complexes, but about systematic change. While other kids played basketball, young Hakeem was in the library, devouring books about Frederick Douglass and Thurgood Marshall, understanding that in America, eloquence could be revolution. His path was methodical, each step building toward something larger. At Binghamton University, he didn't just study political science. He mastered it, graduating summa cum laude while leading student government with a style that professors still remember decades later. Calm, prepared, devastating in debate. His classmates joked that Hakeem could convince you the sky was green, then convince you why it should stay blue, all without raising his voice. The master's in public policy from Georgetown wasn't just another degree. It was ammunition. While others networked at happy hours, Jeffries was in the stacks, studying how policy became law, how law shaped lives, how words on paper could lift communities or crush them. His thesis on criminal justice reform read like a roadmap for the next 20 years of progressive policy. His professors tried to recruit him for academia, but Jeffries had bigger plans. NYU Law School was where Hakeem Jeffries became a weapon, not through aggression, but through precision. His classmates remember him as the guy who could dismantle your argument so thoroughly, so politely, that you'd thank him afterward. He didn't just learn law, he learned how to make law dance, how to transform dense legal concepts into stories anyone could understand. His mock trial performances became legend. One professor said, "Watching Jeffries in court was like watching Jordan play basketball. You knew you were seeing something special." But it was during Trump's first impeachment that America discovered what Brooklyn already knew. Hakeem Jeffries was a communicative genius. His dismantling of Trump's lawyers became must-see TV, not through bombast, but through surgical precision. He'd stand at the podium, no notes, and speak in perfect paragraphs that built like symphonies. Each sentence connected to the next with mathematical precision. Each argument anticipated and destroyed counter-arguments before they could form. "Meet chaos with clarity" became his unofficial motto. While Trump's lawyers screamed and gesticulated, Jeffries spoke in measured tones that somehow carried more force. He'd learned that in American politics, the loudest voice often lost to the clearest one. His impeachment closing argument, delivered without a single note, was so perfectly structured that law schools started teaching it as a masterclass in persuasive speaking. His colleagues marveled at his ability to speak extemporaneously in complete, publishable paragraphs. No ums, no ahs, no searching for words. It was like watching a computer process information in real time, except this computer had soul, rhythm, and the ability to make complex ideas sing. He'd quote hip-hop and Shakespeare in the same breath, making both relevant to the moment. When he learned he'd be responding to Greene on the education bill, Jeffries didn't just prepare, he also orchestrated. He studied every conspiracy theory she'd ever promoted, not to argue with them, but to understand their architecture. He knew you couldn't fact-check madness, but you could expose its foundation. He spent hours with education experts, not just learning statistics but understanding stories. The teacher buying supplies with her own money, the student afraid to go to school, the parent desperate for their child to feel safe. His team watched him prepare with something approaching awe. He'd stand in his office, practicing responses to imaginary Greene outbursts, each time finding a calmer, more devastating way to respond. "She feeds on conflict," he explained. "So we starve her. She needs chaos. So we give her clarity. She wants a fight. So we give her a lesson." The night before the debate, while Greene was printing conspiracy theories, Jeffries was distilling complexity into simplicity. He took 100 pages of education policy and reduced it to 5 human truths anyone could understand. He transformed budget numbers into children's faces, statistics into stories, facts into feelings, but most importantly, he prepared to do what he did best: meet chaos with clarity. His final preparation was almost meditative. He stood before a mirror, practicing his facial expressions, the slight smile that said, "I'm not angry, I'm disappointed," the raised eyebrow that communicated, "Really? That's your argument?" The calm nod that showed he was listening even to madness. Every gesture was calculated to contrast with Greene's inevitable meltdown. Hakeem Jeffries had spent his entire life preparing for moments like this, when democracy needed defending not with swords but with sentences, when extremism had to be met not with more extremism, but with excellence. He was ready to show America that in the battle between conspiracy and clarity, clarity didn't just win, it dominated. And then Hakeem Jeffries began to speak, and Marjorie Taylor Greene's alternate reality started cracking. But first, she had to perform her greatest hits of madness, not realizing she was providing the rope for her own hanging. Greene exploded from her seat like a conspiracy theory made flesh, her red suit blazing under the chamber lights as she waved her manila folder of evidence like a Southern preacher wielding a Bible. "Mr. Speaker, I rise today to expose the truth about this so-called education bill." Her voice was already at a pitch that made the C-SPAN audio technicians wince. "This isn't about protecting children. This is about grooming them." The word grooming echoed through the chamber like a slap. Democrats gasped. Several Republicans suddenly found their phones fascinating. Matt Gaetz, of all people, actually shifted his seat away from Greene. But she was just getting started, her voice climbing higher with each unhinged claim. $3 billion! $3 billion of taxpayer! Money to put government agents in our schools! She pulled out a piece of paper, holding it up like evidence at a trial. "I have proof right here. A Facebook post from a concerned parent in Ohio who says her daughter's school has rainbow flags. This is the homosexual agenda using your tax dollars to confuse your children." The paper shook in her hand. A printed Facebook screenshot with more emojis than facts. Several representatives couldn't hide their disbelief. Even Lauren Boebert, Greene's usual ally in extremism, was studying her desk with intense concentration. The second-hand embarrassment was suffocating. "This bill claims to fund mental health counselors," Greene air-quoted so aggressively she nearly hit herself in the face. "But we know what that really means. Communist indoctrination specialists, teaching our children that America is evil, that their parents are oppressors, that they should question their gender instead of learning math." She was building to something, her face reddening, spittle forming at the corners of her mouth. The chamber watched with the horrified fascination usually reserved for car crashes. Greene pulled out another paper. This one appeared to be a printout from 4chan, complete with anonymous user handles and Pepe the Frog avatars. "An anonymous patriot sent me this evidence that George Soros, is funding this entire operation. He wants to destroy American children to create his new world order." She spun to face Jeffries directly, pointing with her entire arm. "And you, Congressman Jeffries, you are part of this agenda. How much did Soros pay you to poison our children's minds?" The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, delivered with such conviction, such volume, such complete detachment from reality, that even hardened political observers felt uncomfortable. This wasn't normal political theater. This was watching someone's grip on sanity slip in real time. Throughout Greene's performance, Hakeem Jeffries sat with the stillness of a statue, occasionally jotting notes with the calm of someone making a grocery list. When she screamed about grooming, he wrote something down. When she waved her Facebook printouts, he made another note. When she accused him of being funded by Soros, he actually smiled slightly and underlined something on his pad. His composure was almost supernatural. While Greene gesticulated wildly, Jeffries remained motionless, except for his pen. While she screamed about communist indoctrination, he tilted his head slightly, like an anthropologist observing an undiscovered species. His face betrayed no anger, no frustration, just a kind of professional interest, like a doctor noting symptoms. The contrast was becoming painful to watch. Greene, red-faced and sweating, looking like she might spontaneously combust from her own rage. Jeffries, cool and collected, looking like he was waiting for a bus on a pleasant day. The split screen on C-SPAN would become iconic, madness on one side, method on the other. "The Democrats want you to think this is about safety," Greene continued, her voice cracking from strain. "But I have dozens of posts from real Americans who know the truth. This is about control. This is about destroying the nuclear family. This is about—" "Time," the speaker announced, his gavel falling with obvious relief. Greene stood there, breathing heavily, her printed evidence scattered across her desk like the debris of her dignity. She'd given everything to this performance, certain that volume and passion would carry the day as they always had. Jeffries slowly stood, adjusted his microphone with deliberate calm, and smiled the smile of someone about to teach a master class. The conspiracy had met reality. Now it was time for reality to respond. "Let's examine your claims with actual facts," Jeffries began, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who didn't need volume to command attention. He stood at the podium like a professor about to deliver the most important lecture of the semester, his slight smile suggesting he'd been waiting for this moment his entire career. "The Congresswoman from Georgia claims this bill funds grooming." He paused, letting the absurdity of the word hang in the air. "Let's be clear about what this bill actually funds. Licensed mental health counselors, background-checked professionals, people trained to help children process trauma." His voice found a rhythm, steady as a heartbeat. "Unless the Congresswoman believes helping children deal with grief is grooming, her claim is what we call, in technical terms, a lie." Greene shot up from her seat. "You can't call me a liar. I have evidence." Jeffries didn't even turn to look at her. "Congresswoman, Facebook posts aren't evidence. They're opinions. Often wrong opinions, sometimes dangerously wrong opinions. He pulled out a single sheet of paper. Evidence looks like this. A study from Johns Hopkins showing that schools with mental health counselors see a 35% reduction in violence. Evidence is data from 10,000 schools showing improved academic performance when children feel safe. Evidence is, "Those studies are funded by Soros!" Greene screamed, her face turning purple. Now Jeffries D. I turned slowly, deliberately, his expression one of infinite patience. "Congresswoman, shouting doesn't make lies true. It just makes them louder." The chamber erupted in nervous laughter. Even some Republicans couldn't suppress their smiles. He continued, his rhythm building now, finding that Baptist preacher cadence that could make policy sing. The Congresswoman claims communist indoctrination. Let me tell you what's really being indoctrinated. Fear. Fear of teachers. Fear of counselors. Fear of anyone trying to help our children. His voice rose slightly, not in anger but in passion. You know what's radical? Letting children suffer in silence. You know what's extreme? Denying them help because someone on Facebook told you to be afraid. Greene was pounding her desk now, papers flying. You're twisting my words. I'm repeating your words, Congresswoman. There's a difference. Jeffries pulled out another paper. But since you mentioned funding, let's discuss yours. Did you know the Congresswoman received $183,000 from the Heritage Foundation? The same Heritage Foundation pushing to defund public education? He looked up, his eyebrow raised slightly. Interesting coincidence. The chamber went silent. Greene's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Or how about the $75,000 from the Educational Freedom Institute? Jeffries continued, his voice never rising above conversational level. An organization that, and I'm quoting their own website, opposes government interference in child development. Seems like someone is paying you to keep our children vulnerable, Congresswoman. That's different. Greene was standing now, her whole body shaking with rage. You're right. It is different. Jeffries nodded thoughtfully. George Soros isn't funding this bill, but we know exactly who's funding your opposition to it. The difference is I have receipts, and you have. He gestured at her desk. Printed conspiracy theories with crying, laughing emojis. The Democrats couldn't contain themselves anymore. Applause started breaking out despite the speaker's attempts to maintain order. But Jeffries wasn't done. He was building to something, his rhythm perfect, his timing impeccable. The Congresswoman asked how much Soros paid me. The answer is $0. $0, 0 cents. But let me tell you what I was paid by. My conscience. My memory of every child lost to violence. My promise to parents that we'll do better. His voice found another gear, not louder but deeper, more resonant. I'm paid in the tears of mothers who lost babies. I'm paid in the nightmares of children who hide under desks. I'm paid in the hope that maybe, just maybe, we can create schools where learning matters more than lockdowns. Greene was screaming now, incoherent with rage, pounding her desk so hard that her nameplate fell off. You're a liar! A communist! A... Congresswoman, Jeffries interrupted, his voice cutting through her screams like a scalpel through tissue. This is what happens when Facebook posts meet facts. They melt. They evaporate. They reveal themselves as the fever dreams they always were. He turned back to the chamber, his voice returning to that professor's calm. We have a choice. We can govern by conspiracy theory or by compassion. We can lead with lies or with love for our children. We can let fear win, or we can let facts guide us. He paused, looking directly at the C-SPAN camera. I know which one I choose. The Democratic side of the chamber erupted. Not just applause, but a standing ovation. Representatives who'd seen too many unhinged attacks finally watching someone respond with grace and devastating intelligence. Even some Republicans were nodding, unable to deny the masterclass they'd just witnessed. Greene, faced with the complete collapse of her performance, did the only thing she could. She fled. Grabbing her scattered papers, her Facebook printouts fluttering to the floor like dead leaves, she stormed toward the exit, still screaming about communists and groomers and Soros. Her final words, caught by the microphones: "This isn't over." Jeffries watched her go with that same slight smile, then turned back to his microphone for one final word. "The Congresswoman is right about one thing. This isn't over. The fight for our children's safety isn't over. The battle against ignorance isn't over. The work of democracy is never over." He paused, his timing perfect. But her time wasting this chamber's time with conspiracy theories? That's over. The ovation that followed wasn't just for Jeffries. It was for the possibility that facts still mattered, that preparation could defeat performance, that in the battle between intelligence and ignorance, intelligence could still win. Not through volume or anger, but through the simple act of speaking truth with clarity and conviction. Hakeem Jeffries gathered his single page of notes, nodded to the speaker, and returned to his seat. He'd never raised his voice once. He didn't need to. When you have facts on your side, whispers can be more powerful than screams. But this was about more than one viral takedown. This was about how democracy defends itself. Within minutes of Greene's dramatic exit, the internet transformed into a celebration of sanity over chaos. #Jeffries destroys. Greene wasn't just trending. It was dominating every platform, pushing aside celebrity drama and sports highlights as America collectively exhaled after watching intelligence demolish ignorance. The clips spread like wildfire, each one capturing a different moment of the destruction. The "shouting doesn't make lies true" line became an instant classic, remixed into songs within hours. The moment Jeffries revealed Greene's funding sources while she pounded her desk got the meme treatment. Her rage-filled face, contrasted with his calm smile, became the new template for trying to argue with facts. But it was the full video that truly went nuclear, racking up 50 million views in 6 hours. Republicans scattered from Greene like she was radioactive. Mitch McConnell, master of saying nothing while communicating everything, released a statement praising civil discourse in our democratic process. Washington speak for Greene is on her own. Kevin McCarthy suddenly had urgent meetings that prevented him from commenting. Even Matt Gaetz, Greene's usual partner in extremism, tweeted about focusing on real issues facing Americans without mentioning her name. The education community's response was electric. Teachers who'd been demonized as groomers finally had their champion. Teachers. For Jeffries exploded with educators sharing the clip alongside their own stories. "This is how you handle bullies," posted a kindergarten teacher from Iowa. "With facts, patience, and the confidence that comes from being right." The National Education Association's website crashed from teachers trying to share the video. Lesson plans were already being written around Jeffries' response as a masterclass in critical thinking versus conspiracy theories. Greene's attempt at damage control became its own disaster. Within an hour, she was in her car, because apparently, all political meltdowns now happened in vehicles, streaming on Facebook Live. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her voice hoarse from screaming. "The radical left is trying to silence me for speaking truth," she ranted to her phone. "Jeffries is a communist actor paid by Soros to destroy America." The video was so unhinged that even her supporters were concerned. "Is she okay?" became the top comment. The answer was clearly no. Meanwhile, Jeffries' social media exploded in the opposite direction. His follower count jumped by 2 million in 3 hours. His old tweets about education and policy were being shared with heart emojis and fire reactions. Young Democrats were calling him democracy's dad and the conspiracy killer. His Wikipedia page crashed from traffic. Georgetown and NYU Law were both claiming him extra hard, with professors sharing stories about knowing he was special. The conservative media response was telling in its reluctance. Fox News, which normally would have defended Greene, instead ran segments on maintaining decorum in Congress. Ben Shapiro admitted Jeffries performed well, which in Shapiro speak meant completely destroyed our side. Even Tucker Carlson could only muster complaints about theatrical Democrats without defending Greene's conspiracy theories. When you've lost Tucker Carlson, you've lost the extremist right. But the real victory came in the afternoon vote. The Education Security and Innovation Act, which had been expected to pass narrowly along party lines, suddenly gained Republican support. 12 GOP representatives who'd been on the fence voted yes, later citing the need to distance ourselves from conspiracy theories and focus on real solutions. The bill passed 287 to 148, a margin that shocked even optimistic Democrats. "I've been in Congress for 20 years, one Republican admitted anonymously, and I've never seen one speech change votes like that. Jeffries didn't just beat Greene, he made voting with her look insane." Late-night comedians had early Christmas. Stephen Colbert opened with, "Folks, today we learned that Facebook posts aren't facts." "I know. I'm shocked too. Next you'll tell me Twitter isn't peer-reviewed." Trevor Noah created an entire segment called Jeffries University, where he played a student learning that shouting doesn't make lies true in increasingly absurd scenarios. "These pancakes are waffles!" he screamed at breakfast food. "Still pancakes, Trevor," came Jeffries' calm voiceover. By evening, the video had been translated into dozens of languages, spreading internationally as a case study in handling extremism. The BBC called it American Democracy's Antibodies at Work. French media praised L'intelligence contre l'ignorance. Even Russian state media, masters of disinformation, seemed impressed by Jeffries' technique. The cultural impact was immediate and profound. Parents used the clip to teach children about evaluating sources. Universities added it to critical thinking curricula. "Shouting doesn't make lies true" became the comeback for every internet argument. Democracy hadn't just won the day, it had created a template for winning future battles. As one teacher posted that night, "Today, facts won. Intelligence won. Our kids won. And somewhere, Marjorie Taylor Greene is still in her car, screaming at her phone, proving Jeffries' point with every word." But this was about more than one viral takedown. This was about how democracy defends itself in an age of weaponized ignorance. Hakeem Jeffries hadn't just defeated Marjorie Taylor Greene. He'd provided a masterclass in how intelligence becomes resistance when extremism threatens to drown out reason. For years, Democrats had struggled with how to respond to the conspiracy industrial complex. Do you ignore it and let lies metastasize? Do you match the crazy with your own volume? Do you fact-check every delusion and risk amplifying it? Jeffries had just demonstrated a fourth way. You let extremism reveal itself while calmly providing the antidote. You don't wrestle with pigs. You stand clean beside them and let everyone see the mud. The power of preparation over provocation couldn't be overstated. While Greene had spent her night printing Facebook posts and diving deeper into digital rabbit holes, Jeffries had done actual work, researching funding sources, understanding policy impacts, preparing responses that would educate rather than just eviscerate. His demolition of Greene wasn't luck or natural talent. It was the result of taking governance seriously while she treated it as performance art. Jeffries showed us that facts aren't just the antidote to conspiracy theories. They're kryptonite, observed Dr. Timothy Snyder, Yale historian and democracy expert. Conspiracy theories thrive in vagueness, in the spaces between what people know and what they fear. When you fill those spaces with specific, verifiable facts, the conspiracies don't just weaken, they collapse. But it was Jeffries' composure that provided the real lesson. In an attention economy that rewarded the loudest voice, he'd proven that calm could cut through chaos like a laser through fog. His refusal to match Greene's energy wasn't weakness, it was strategy. By maintaining his professor's demeanor while she melted down, he'd made her extremism impossible to ignore or excuse. The split screen of serenity versus insanity became a visual metaphor for the choice facing America. This modeled something crucial for dealing with extremism in the digital age. You don't defeat conspiracy theories by shouting, "That's not true." You defeat them by calmly showing what is true. You don't win by getting angry at lies. You win by making the liars angry with truth. Jeffries had weaponized composure, turned preparation into performance art, made excellence a form of resistance. The importance of leaders who can communicate, really communicate, not just tweet or shout or perform, became crystal clear. Jeffries hadn't just spoken in complete sentences. He'd spoken in complete thoughts that built into complete arguments that revealed complete truths. In an era of fragments and sound bites, he'd shown the power of coherence. He'd made complexity accessible without dumbing it down, made policy personal without pandering. What Jeffries demonstrated, said Dr. Sarah Kendzior, scholar of authoritarian systems, is that in a democracy under assault by disinformation, clarity becomes a revolutionary act. When extremists muddy the waters, the radical response is to be crystal clear. When they complicate simple truths, you simply state complex truths. The template for confronting dangerous lies had been written in real time. First, let them reveal themselves. Give extremists the rope and the stage. Second, respond with specifics that can't be denied or deflected. Third, maintain absolute composure that makes their chaos look like what it is, desperation. Fourth, always bring it back to real people and real consequences. Fifth, close with values that transcend party, protecting children, serving communities, choosing hope over hate. Young politicians across the country were already studying the footage like game film. State legislators facing their own MTGs were taking notes on Jeffries' technique. The Jeffries method was being taught in debate clubs and law schools. But the lesson went beyond technique. It was about philosophy. That in a democracy, excellence wasn't elitism. It was service. That being smarter than your opponent wasn't arrogance. It was preparation. That speaking truth clearly wasn't performance. It was patriotism. The deeper implication was profound. America didn't need to choose between fighters and thinkers. Jeffries had shown you could be both. You could fight ignorance with intelligence, combat lies with logic, resist extremism with excellence. The best defense of democracy wasn't matching the extremists' energy. It was making their energy look ridiculous by comparison. As one political scientist summarized, Jeffries didn't just win a debate. He demonstrated that in the battle between conspiracy and clarity, between fear and facts, between chaos and competence, excellence isn't just the best strategy, it's the status, the only strategy that preserves what we're fighting for. Democracy had found its defense mechanism, not through volume or violence, but through the radical act of being excellent, when extremism demanded everyone sink to its level. Intelligence as resistance, preparation as patriotism, and calm, clear truth as the ultimate weapon against those who would burn it all down. The template was set. The method was proven. Now it was up to America to decide. Would we choose excellence, or would we let extremism win by default? Remember that calm smile on Hakeem Jeffries' face as Marjorie Taylor Greene's conspiracy theories crumbled like sandcastles meeting the tide. That wasn't just satisfaction. That was democracy defending itself. That was intelligence proving it's still the strongest force in politics. That was preparation showing that no amount of printed Facebook posts can stand against actual facts delivered with precision and grace. In just 20 minutes, one prepared leader exposed extremism's fundamental emptiness. Greene brought volume. Jeffries brought value. She brought fear. He brought facts. She brought Facebook. He brought receipts. And when conspiracy theories finally met reality, reality didn't just win, it won so thoroughly that even Greene knew to run. But here's what should really inspire you. Jeffries didn't need special powers or secret weapons. He just did the work. He prepared. He researched. He chose clarity over chaos. He proved that in the age of lies, facts aren't just powerful, they're revolutionary. That in a world where extremists scream louder and louder, sometimes the most radical act is to speak truth quietly and clearly. This is what we should demand from every leader. Not just the ability to tweet clever comebacks or deliver sound bites, but the excellence to dismantle dangerous lies with patient truth. Not just the courage to fight extremism, but the intelligence to expose its hollow core. Not just resistance to conspiracy theories, but the competence to replace them with reality. The power is in our hands. When we choose leaders like Jeffries over performers like Greene, when we reward preparation over provocation, when we share facts instead of fear, we're not just watching democracy defend itself. We're participating in its defense. Want to see more extremists meet reality? More conspiracy theories crumble under the weight of facts? More moments where excellence exposes emptiness? Subscribe now. Because in the battle between intelligence and ignorance, between truth and conspiracy, between democracy and extremism, every view counts, every share matters, and every voice choosing facts over fear brings us closer to the America we deserve. The show isn't over. It's just beginning. And spoiler alert, reality wins every time.